Ghost fart, ghost fart, ghost fart. It's a ghost fart. Ghost fart.
Aren't all farts kind of ghosts for your lunch?
Go.
He lives again. What lives again? My taters.
That was the ghost of my burrito.
Okie show.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that explores the heartlands entertainment industries. I'm Brian, and I'm joined today by a guest co-host, Miss Lainey Gilliland.
We're brother and sister.
That's right, in a very Star Warsy way.
We kissed.
Now kiss. My goodness. So, you know what? We're recording this early, so at this point, this year has been so freaking weird by now that, like, who knows? In 2 weeks from now, by the time you guys are hearing this, maybe we've been invaded by freaking Martians. I don't even know. So, but we're still recovering from the COVID loveliness.
The COVID loveliness.
It was so lovely. I had no problem with that whatsoever.
I really did enjoy quarantine, though, to be quite honest.
Well, I was going to say, like, I'm curious to know, like, from the listeners, I want to know, you guys should message us on Facebook and our Instagram, like, what were you up to during the quarantine? Because for me, like, I was doing handiwork and I was doing everything but film-related stuff.
Chickens. We got chickens.
We got chickens, yeah. And then you, Lainey, the wife Pooh, you got enrolled in nursing school, which is freaking
Well, not yet.
I love that there's a global pandemic and, like, everyone is trying to avoid the hospitals like the plague. Ha! Literally. And Aw, too soon.
Well, it's because Mom's a nurse, and, like, she's been so helpful, not only, like, during this time, but my entire life. People have always needed somebody with some medical expertise to help, and, you know, I think that everybody just needs a good nurse friend. And I want to be that person. I want to pull stuff out of your butt whenever it comes to that.
It's a weird specialization to focus on.
I could be that, you know, puller.
She can be that butt puller that you've always dreamed of.
Or if you get something weird in your ear, or if you need
The ear really is the butt of the head.
It is. No, the mouth is the butt of the head. We all know that.
That's true.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I started going to school. I'm not quite in nursing school yet, but I am on my way.
You're on your way.
I am.
Like, one of the funniest things about you is that you pass out at the drop of a hat.
Yes. So I've been slowly...
Blood.
No, not at blood. I can handle blood and guts, but if you stick a needle into somebody, like, that used to be it for me. So, I have not pursued anything in nursing until now because I could not get over it. And I realized that I could slowly desensitize myself. And now needles don't bother me as much. I've been, like, whenever we're watching TV, I'll just pull up pictures of IVs and needles going into people's arms. And just slowly, and whenever it gets too much, I'll just click off and then I'll go back to it and look at it. And it's not bothering me.
Yeah. And this is no small thing, y'all, because what do you do?
So whenever I myself get an IV put into my arm, I pass out, and it's called vageling. So my eyes roll back in my head, my hands curl up and go near my face and shake, so it looks like I'm having a violent seizure.
And then a Catholic priest bursts into the room.
Yes. And then I scurry up the wall with my head spinning round.
Pea soup everywhere.
Pea soup everywhere. No, so, like, my doctor has to prescribe me Valium anytime I get a stick. And so
Which is loads of fun for me to take you to the hospital. Hand off my extremely drugged wife.
So what made me actually feel like I could go into nursing is my mom can start IVs on people all day long. But if you start an IV on her, she passes out too. And so I was like, wait, I could have been a nurse this entire time? She's like, yeah, you just get over it. She's like, I still pass out if you poke me, but I'm like, oh my gosh. So here I am, almost 30, and just now pursuing what I've always wanted to be.
But you're doing it, man. Like, that's awesome. And I'll tell you what, if there's a silver lining of this whole COVID thing, it's that it was the nice little kick in the pants for both of us to get our butts in gear in a couple different ways. So.
I worked in oil and gas.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Worked in oil and gas.
Former.
Because everybody knows that oil and gas is in the toilet now. So that was a kick in the pants for me to find something way more stable.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
It was a bummer, but it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But you have another weird thing that you've always had about you as long as I've known you, which is you cannot handle skin. Not full-blown nudity even, just skin.
Here's the thing. I cannot... Okay, so I could handle in emergencies, like having to see a swing chong. Or some...
Oh, okay, so like there's a car accident and a guy flies through the windshield and his falls out.
I could handle...
You can handle that.
Because something needs...
We've got to save this man. Resuscitate him. Put his away.
Put a swing chong back in his underpants. But I cannot handle the naked body, like
you could never go to a nude beach.
No, I would disintegrate. I would need a Valium to go to a nude
burst
beach.
into flames.
So, just to show like how deep this actually goes, I went to...
She still hasn't seen me naked one time.
I still haven't seen him naked.
10 years of marriage.
Yeah. By the way, we're not brother and sister, in case you're still confused about that. We are.
I'm digging my heels in.
So, we had a swim party, and one of my best friends, who I've known for years, comes up to me and she's in a bikini. And I can't even look at her. She's like, why do you keep looking away?
Look at you.
And I was like, you're naked. So it just makes me so uncomfortable. And like me, myself, like I'm extremely modest. Would you say that?
I would say repressed. But
I'm very repressed. Like I don't like...
I still haven't seen you poop.
I don't do that, so that's why you haven't seen me. Because I've never ever done that
everything.
before. That has nothing to do with
mysterious
nudity.
Smell of dead body in the bathroom every once in a while.
It's your basset hound.
Oh.
That has nothing to do with nudity. Why are you talking about
I consider it to be the same.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So, needless to say, I refuse to watch Game of Thrones. I loved The Crown because it was so clean and it was so good.
You were into True Blood.
And like I stopped watching True Blood because of all the sex stuff.
Blue.
The big orgy in the woods, I was like, nope, because I used to like kind of fast forward.
That was pivotal to the plot. No, we would not have known that they had orgies in the woods had they not had an orgy in the woods.
So True Blood was hard for me to navigate, and I like watched The Path too on Hulu, and like anytime somebody would start kissing, I would just fast forward, whether or not I knew it led to like a sex scene.
You are so weird.
Well, okay.
Even smooching?
No.
Keep the mirror away from us then.
Kissing is fine, but I just know that it leads to stuff. So, I don't ever want to see you kissing Slinky again. I love him. That's different.
He's a wiener dog.
I love him more than you.
Aww.
National Geographics too. All the boobies. Okay, I have one more.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, like, animals.
Animals can't...
All these animals without their pants on.
Should wear pants. I don't understand why we haven't clothed animals. Our children will suffer.
It's completely inappropriate. These dogs walking around with their balls dangling around. The views expressed in today's episode are not exactly reflective of the Okie Show as a corporation.
I'm a psycho.
You're... I love that I'm the advocate here.
I know. And even my sister, she's like, you can't even handle this. I was like, no, I can't. I'm going to barf.
Gosh.
It's just too much.
Well, how do you feel about today's topic?
Oh my gosh. It made me feel so happy that there are people who care and that see into or that read in between the lines of things that need to be done. Mm-hmm. And I'm super encouraged, and it makes me extremely happy. And
yeah. So today we're talking to Miss Tonya Sina, who is an intimacy coordinator and kind of a pioneer in the world of coordinating intimate scenes and nudity on stage. Like, her focus is specifically in the theater, but there's a lot of things that kind of cross over into film. So we pick her brain about where the world is in the world of entertainment when it comes to intimacy. And
intimacy is incredible, the broad range that it covers.
It is. I don't know if you've tried it, but it rocks.
This episode has just like really expanded my knowledge of all of this. Like, it has, and it's been a comfort to me.
Yeah.
So
let's go to our conversation with Miss Tonya Sina. So we're here with Miss Tonya Sina. Hello, madam, calling in on Zoom from Chicago, Illinois. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. This is such an interesting topic, and it feels like we're still kind of figuring stuff out, at least on the film side. It feels like we're still kind of figuring stuff out. So, Tonya, I know that you focus primarily on the theater world of things, but I think that there's some universal stuff that we can kind of talk about, and so let's do it. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay. So
where do we start?
First off, let's just start with what exactly an intimacy coordinator is, intimacy director. Like, what is that?
Okay, so an intimacy coordinator is a person who is trained to come onto a film set and not only necessarily anything from choreographing specifically scenes of intimacy or simulated sex acts to just being in the room to make sure that everybody feels like they have a safe space. So it can be as hands-on as, the intimacy director is literally telling the actors what to do and how to move, to being pretty hands-off and just being there between to make sure that everyone's checking in with each other. Prior to in the theater, we do the same thing, but it's a little bit different because we have rehearsals, and rehearsals are a little bit, they're set up a little bit, all of the work gets done in the rehearsals so that the action is repeatable, versus in film, you really only need to get one shot, once you have it, then you have it. With theater, the technique changes because you have to make it repeatable. So the rules have to change about how it can be repeatable. And it has to be the same every single night within the contract that the two actors make. Otherwise, if a hand slips and they didn't agree to that, then that could potentially be a case for sexual assault. Oh, so wow. We have to make sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why that's shocking to me.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is up until up until the specialty, it was let's just try something, and we don't have any technique behind it. It's just I know how to have sex, so let's just try to have sex. And it was never, how are the characters performing this? What is the story we're trying to tell? And the outcome of that, as I saw when I wrote my master's thesis, was that sex scenes were just awkward or uncomfortable or dangerous in some cases because people were getting assaulted. And I myself had been assaulted many times in that context. So, so the technique was literally just invented so that I personally, as a director and choreographer, would stop enabling the abuse of the actors I was working with. So I wanted to make a solid technique that made sense, just like we have for stage combat and for violence on stage. Everything is very organized. It's very disciplined. There's lots of teaching. There's lots of workshops. There's lots of, classes in it. Lots of different weapons and specialties.
That's so funny. That's so true, because it's not like whenever you're doing a fight scene that you just, we know how to fight.
That's right.
At it. Here's a sword. Go to town.
Go ahead, try something. Yeah, we don't do that, right?
Make it real.
So that's what I learned when I was studying. I went to Virginia Commonwealth University to study how to be a stage combat professor. That's what I was learning to be. It was the pedagogy of teaching staged violence. And while I was there, I was asked to choreograph a couple of sex scenes, and I realized, whoa, this is way bigger of a gaping hole in the industry. Nobody's doing it, because I researched it, but at the time, there was nobody choreographing sex. There was nobody saying that they were choreographing only sex. There was nobody specializing in it. So that's what I decided to pioneer, was this should be a specialty just like stage combat and stunts are. Yeah. And it should be separate from stage combat and stunts, because a violence expert isn't necessarily an expert in intimacy.
Right.
And vice versa.
Is this accepted? Like, is there a lot of intimacy coordinators now, or is it kind of like a new thing that's coming around?
Well, it's new in the scheme of like the arts, right? Since I published my thesis in 2006, that's when I coined the phrase.
Wow.
Okay.
So since then, for about 10 years, I graduated and I moved to Oklahoma right away. And I lived in Oklahoma as a professor at both OU and OCU, teaching workshops, trying to hone in the skill, teaching classes. And I didn't call it intimacy because it's Oklahoma. You can't call, I couldn't call it that. Yeah. So I called it
Cultural Relations Director.
Yeah, exactly. I had to call the class Gender Relations and Performance in order for it to be able to be taught.
Yeah.
And it was about choreographing scenes of intimacy. And it's not necessarily just sex, it's intimacy. So it's a bigger umbrella than that.
That's
and it went over really well.
Real quick, because you make such a very important point there. There is a difference between sex and intimate. Because like whenever we're shooting on film, like I'll tell people that I was working on an intimacy series or something like that, and they don't know what that is. And it's not sex. So can you explain the difference between intimacy scenes and sex scenes?
Yeah, well, especially now in a COVID world, a lot of intimacy can be non-contact. And we tell a lot of stories on stage that don't contain any sort of kissing, sex or simulated sex. Sometimes it's just breathing or eye contact or the subtleties of how the body physiologically changes when there's an attraction to somebody else. And the study of that is part of the art form of what we choreograph. And so in the past, it was just, it's up to the actors to choreograph themselves, but actors are not choreographers. They can act, they can fulfill the role and tell the story, but they need to be told what the choreography is from somebody, especially when you're involving something that should have consent. And up until a couple of years ago, theater was being choreographed without asking for any consent. It was just, well, you signed up for this role, so obviously you consented, so you can't say no now.
I've always thought
that's how we've gotten into this horrible situation with actors being abused.
I've always thought that was so fascinating because, like, I remember whenever I first started working in film and around performers and stuff, and like it was well before the Me Too movement began, and I just remember feeling like there's something slimy about this, like the way that they're doing it. Like there's no accountability. Like you can close a set all you want, but you still have all these people gathered around monitors and poking their heads, and it's just like it's just uncomfortable from an onlooker standpoint. I can't imagine what it's like to be on the actor's shoes. So having a buffer there and having a safety net like what you are is just so, like.
Well, and it's thanks. We don't like to say, because some people are really bristly about the fact that we have this specialty now. A lot of directors feel like, well, I don't need another voice in the room, or it's just somebody's going to put me in between my act, like someone in between me and my actors, or, they feel like it's censorship of actors because we're saying they think this is a job that's like the sex police.
Oh, yeah.
That my job is to come in and prevent sexual assault from happening in its tracks.
Yeah.
And that's not what it is. We're preventative. We're not reactionary. So like I obviously, if I'm seeing something happen in front of me, I'm going to stop it.
Right.
And I can recognize before it happens usually that it's about to happen. But that's not what the job is to choreograph the scenes and to have a vocabulary to make sure everybody is having their opinions and their consent being expressed. Because a lot of actors don't know that they're allowed to have that. And the power dynamics of having a director ask you to perform sex when they might be really, really powerful, they might be able to not cast you in the future, or in academia, they might be giving you a grade. All of those power dynamics make the question of consent not so certain anymore. Are they really consenting if there's, like time is money in film. You waste time and that's expensive. So for an actor to sit there and have to say, okay, well, I don't actually feel comfortable. Can we look at this for a second? Or can I get help with this? That takes a lot of guts to have to say no to a room full of people who just want to get this over with. So that's, there is the specialty of intimacy, but what we really are trying to do is change the industry completely so that we are realizing what we're asking of actors and making sure that everybody's boundaries are being respected.
Right.
So do you receive a lot of pushback from directors or from, other actors, or is it are people pretty understanding of what you're here to do, or is it kind of touch and go?
For a while, every room I walked into, I had to sell. I had to sell it. Now I don't have to sell it. I do know that a lot of my colleagues feel like they do still have to sell it to a lot of rooms. There are a lot of, generally, I'm not going to be hired if I'm not wanted in the room.
Yeah.
So luckily, if you have budgeted for an intimacy director to come in, that means you probably really need them. And everyone agreed that they should be there. I have been in rooms where the producer wants me to come in and the director's not so hot about it. And sometimes in those situations, I take a step back a little bit and I just support and I make sure those actors are being taken care of backstage. And if they have nudity, make sure we're all following all the rules and the techniques and all the things that we've set up to protect them. But I would say nowadays I get far less pushback depending on the industry. If we're talking about theater, people are pretty much on board. If we're talking about opera, there's still some convincing.
Really? Do tell.
Yeah. Well, we didn't start an opera. And opera is steeped in a lot of tradition, let's just say. So it's really hard to change something that's been, done the same way for so long. And theater kind of ever evolves and updates with whatever's going on in the world. Opera kind of stays in the past a little bit. And, we've seen productions with yellow face still, or, certain things that are culturally inappropriate. So there's a lot of things in the arts that, and in this COVID sort of pause, a lot of artists are going, well, maybe this is the best thing for us is to let's just stop and start
just
over.
Take a beat. That's one of those weird blessings within the curse of COVID of just forcing everybody to just stop. Just take a breath.
Yeah.
Realize how non-essential your job is.
I mean, it really has been helpful for everybody to just take a breath because I think we were all moving really, really fast. And and this industry had to completely stop in its tracks.
Screeching halt.
Yeah. We can't be in the same room. So, and intimacy over Zoom is not as fun.
Right. So what is that, though? Now that we are in a kind of a COVID world, what does that look like? Because, you have people that need to be touching physically. Right.
Well, what's interesting about this is that I am immunocompromised highly. I have an ultra rare blood disease and I'm a kidney transplant patient 2 times over and I'm waiting for a kidney. I'm on dialysis. So I'm an example of a very high risk person. I already am very limited on, and in the rules of intimacy direction and how I teach my teachers is choreographers never should have to really touch their performers, period. Just because it's inappropriate when you're choreographing intimacy. It's not inappropriate when you're choreographing
Step
dance.
aside, let me show you how to do it.
Yeah. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So there are choreographers that do that. They step in for the performance and intimacy that you cannot do that. So there are rules that are different about intimacy that don't apply to other specialties. And in COVID, we kind of we put those rules into it already because it was founded by, my method at least was founded by somebody who is a member of the disabled community who is immunocompromised. So within that, we're almost like amping up the rules we already have. So we limit kissing as much as possible in live performance. We limit, as we call it, mucus to mucus membrane contact.
Yes.
That is the that sucks all romance out of it.
My mom
doesn't
say
it?
that to me all the time. Don't touch your mucus membranes.
Yeah.
Mucus
Whenever
membrane
Lainey and I
contact.
have kids now, whenever they're old enough to go dating, that's what we're just gonna say that.
You're welcome.
Whatever you do, no exchanging of mucus membranes.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. So like it used to be, oh, I don't need an intimacy director for this show because it's just like a couple of kisses and that's not really, I can handle that. But like kissing is one of the most dangerous things we do on stage. Because unlike a slap, right? A slap in stage combat, you can do the technique and you don't want to do a contact face slap because that's dangerous, right? So you want to set it up, you want to set up the angles, you can do the technique and it's pretty much safe. With kissing, because the physiological changes of what happens to your body almost immediately when two people kiss, especially if they're role playing on top of that. Your brain cannot tell the difference between real and fake sometimes when you're in those physiological, your body responds, just naturally responds to kissing, to touching, to any of those things. So as opposed to fighting where you don't hate your partner the more you work together, with intimacy, the more you work together, the more you develop feelings for each other, you get closer. And that can become really hard to set those boundaries. And so we've had to build in techniques of closure, being able to walk away from the work and being like, okay, I want to go home to my wife. I want to go home to my partner.
What are some of those techniques? Do you mind sharing with us, like,
Yeah,
how would
so-
you coach past that?
Yeah, so we do the work, we choreograph the work, and we make sure there's always a third party present. We never ask anybody to, work on it alone. And then at the end of the work, we have usually I use a tap out, which is like, we do like a high 10, and that's sort of like a marker of like the sound. We can feel it. It's like a boom, we're done. Now we're colleagues. It just marks the end of us trying to be characters in love. And now we can just be colleagues talking to each other in a rehearsal hall, right? So I also have a service dog that comes with me to teach, and she actually also helps me serve as closure. So like if we do scenes that are heightened, really emotional, like a sexual assault or anything like that, she'll run in once we say, okay, everybody, now let's like break. She'll run in and go comfort the actors, and then they can just pet a puppy so they can get out of their heads.
That's the greatest thing I've ever heard.
I'm going to have to... What kind of dog is it? Let's take a break from all this. We need to know about the dog.
All right, it's dog time.
She's a pit bull.
So she's got a big apple head.
She has a big apple head here. Would you like to meet her?
Oh my
I'll bring you
Yes.
over. This is Daphne Rose.
Daphne Rose.
Oh dear. Oh my goodness.
God. Look at your little apple head and your little booper.
Oh, for the listeners that cannot see, this is the cutest dog ever. Oh my goodness.
This is Daphne. She always wears a pink bow.
She's got a little bow. She's already making me feel better, and I wasn't even sad.
Yeah, she's good at that, right?
Oh gracious.
She looks so sleepy. Like you've interrupted.
I did.
Yeah.
I interrupted her nap, but
I was taking a nap, Mom.
She's very sweet. She's very smart, and her job is to break up sexual tension. So, in the workshop that we teach,
That's just so darn clever too.
So when two people, we do a lot of exercises with extended eye contact, or sometimes it's hugging exercises, or just to just repeat choreography. If I tell her, okay, now go, she'll run in and be like, okay, break it up, you two.
Fun police. Fun police.
She is.
You know what?
She is the sex police.
Yeah.
Our dogs, Our dogs are experts in breaking up sexual tension too. So
It's
if
true.
you would like to borrow them.
We have a basset hound and a wiener dog. And nothing kills the mood faster.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so cool. Like
I
just the
love
idea of that's just so neat. Kudos.
It's
to
a
you.
fun job.
Yeah. Well, what would it for a small production that may be foreign to this, what we're talking about right now, like with this position and stuff, what would that look like? Like how would a smaller production implement everything that you're talking about? How do we make those actors feel safe?
So because this is such a new specialty, we don't have hundreds of thousands of intimacy choreographers in the world yet. The organization that I'm a part of, I founded a nonprofit with two of my colleagues to start a training program because we felt we needed to be the highest standard of this in the industry because I kind of pioneered it and then it evolved and then my colleague Alicia brought it to film. So and translated it for film. And so we've been here sort of the longest. We're not saying we're the first people in the world to choreograph sex scenes. Obviously people choreographed sex scenes before I was born, but nobody was calling it a specialty separate from anything else. And they certainly weren't necessarily using consent rules the way we know them now. So the actors weren't feeling safe in that process.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so now if a small company feels that they're doing a show that's got a lot of sex in it and they want a specialist, depending on what city you are from, you can go to our website and we can recommend you a choreographer in the area because we have, sorry, my laptop is dying. We have, sorry.
It's okay, I'll edit that part out.
Thanks. So we have now we have choreographers all over the United States. We have a bunch in Canada. We've got some in the UK that have started its own branch over there. So we've got branches in different countries now, and also Australia and Finland. But so it's become an international movement. And here, depending on how much your budget is, if you are looking for somebody who is, at the top certified with, the organization and fully trained and also, a teacher, that's going to be on the higher end of your budget. But we also have newer intimacy directors. We also have students of intimacy direction that can handle, certain choreographical scenes that we might give them, we might give them smaller projects until they can handle bigger projects. We really try not to advise people who are not trained to do this work to do it because we have seen a lot of people get hurt by people thinking that they could do this just because they might have a knack for sex or whatever that means. That doesn't mean you know how to be an intimacy director. And so we're really trying to emphasize that you need to have implicit bias training. You need to have diplomacy skills. You need to be able to, de-escalate an emotional outburst. You need to be able to recognize the difference between a panic attack and a heart attack, Wow. So we all have mental health first aid certifications. We've done a lot of research outside of being theater people to make sure that we are as best trained as possible. And we're still trying to figure out what all that specifically means. But what it means is it takes a while to train to be a fully recognized intimacy director or coordinator. Because we're the last person to make sure that a crime isn't being committed sometimes.
Right.
So it's really important that we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
How often is it like, do you run into panic attacks or to certain situations like that you have to de-escalate? Is that a common thing or is it kind of rare scenarios?
I would say it's more on the rare side.
I mean, that's good.
It also depends on what kind of a choreographer you are. Like I know some pretty abusive choreographers that can make a panic attack happen just like that.
Yeah.
I also know, some people who have never seen anybody have a panic attack in front of them as a choreographer. So I think it depends on, on what the choreography is that you're asking them to do, and what those actors' personal stories are, that we don't need to know what their past is. All we need to know is trauma when it's happening, and how to help them navigate that and give them the resources that they need. Because up until now, it's been, okay, actors are just on their own, and they're gluttons for punishment. And for some reason, it implied that actors were allowed to be assaulted and abused at work, which they shouldn't be. It's a job, just like any other job. Right. They should be allowed to be safe at work.
Support for the Okie Show is provided by the Oklahoma Film and Music Office. As the entertainment industry continues to flourish both globally and here in Oklahoma, the need for the continued development and expansion of our local film industry workforce and companies is critical. Join the action and start your new career in the Oklahoma film industry. Find out more at okfilmmusic.org/getting started. Y'all know me. Know how I earn a living. I'll insure this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy. It's tough production. Not like going down to the film school and having Mom and Aunt Gilly supplying the catering. This show, swallow you whole. No sinking or tenderizing. Down you go. You shoot it quick, but it's not gonna be pleasant. Now, Outgate is a commercial insurance broker with film and entertainment expertise headquartered in Oklahoma. It means you get the Oklahoma film rebate and local people available anytime you need them. Thing about this director, he's got black eyes like doll's eyes. His last show, 100 men started production. Only 23 came out. Meal penalties took the rest. Outgate Insurance. Our website's at oklahoma-film.com. They place annual policies for producers of all types. Post-production E&O, specific film project policies for budgets of all sizes. And they work with musicians too. Place an insurance for gigs and events of all types. No matter what's your budget, whether it's $5,000 or $15 million. Outgate Insurance can toss you a lifeline. And they can also find you coverage for post-production errors and omissions. You're gonna need it in order to get your film distributed. I'll cover pre-pro, production, post, the whole damn thing. Call Outgate at 918-574-4455 for your movie's production insurance. That's 918-574-4555, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Quint. We'll take it under advisement.
I'll never wear a life jacket again.
Would you have any advice for actors that are going to do an intimacy scene that they for sure, don't have an intimacy coordinator? Like, what advice would you give them?
There are so many resources to read. There's a lot of articles on our website. We have tons of resources to look through, that some of them are specifically made to help performers who don't have an intimacy director in the room. There's also workshops that we recommend taking even as a performer, to just get used to the fact that intimacy is going to be handled differently from here on out. Yeah. It's never going to be asked of you without, you're not going to be coerced into performing sex scenes. That's, our job is not, we are not sex workers. We are actors. So we need to know how the skill of simulated sex, which is not the same as sex, and that's a separate skill. So we're trying to get it into academia. We're trying to, I taught it in Oklahoma a little bit, but it didn't take off too well there, as you might imagine. Yeah. But there's a lot of
which is so funny. I feel like that's so backwards. You'd think they'd be all about it.
Well, no. Here we're just like, well, let's just eliminate sex scenes completely.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's where we come from.
Sex doesn't exist. Everybody knows it was the buzzard that brought us to the crib. I don't know.
The buzzard.
Did I say buzzard?
Buzzard.
Them dang buzzards.
And I hate to say, because
I don't know what brought you, but it was a buzzard for me.
They weren't really receptive to hearing a younger woman tell them things should be changed.
Right.
So
I can see that. Yeah.
The mere fact of my demographics didn't help me and my situation in Oklahoma, which is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, and hopefully that changes. You know, I have hope for that. I feel like I've noticed a change just from the set over the last 5 years, as far as like taking things seriously, people being sensitive, people being wise and not just willy-nilly. And like, I feel like in my experience on set, you're seeing less of, well, this is just what the character would want, so you just do it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, if it makes you feel any better, because I know there was damage done and trauma by the incident with that we talked about earlier, that happened in Oklahoma with the film industry. What happened in Oklahoma, if that makes anybody feel better, those rules that we didn't have in place that allowed that to happen are now SAG rules in all film sets.
Yeah.
So that horrible situation has led to how we, you know, it wasn't the only source that we took from, but it was definitely influencing on when we were creating rules of how to keep people safe.
Yeah. So. That is wonderful to hear. What can an actor, him or herself, do to be at peace with all of this, to you know, not find themselves in an uncomfortable position? Is there anything that they can do?
Well, you can't control everybody, and we know that there are abusive people out there. Are we like getting rid of them slowly but surely? Sure, because we don't tolerate things as much as we used to. I would say what an actor can do to protect themselves from a lot of what I do is I help to empower actors, empower them, not take their power away, empower them so that they understand what their boundaries are. In this industry, we have been told not to have boundaries, and we are rewarded for not having boundaries. It's like, oh, look how risky that person is. Let's give them more roles, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we're trying to reset the entire industry by saying, you know what, when somebody says, actually, I'm not comfortable with that, is it okay if we this instead, that we all say, thank you for telling me your boundary, because you have now, you know, given me information that I can use to make this entire scene better for both of us. So a lot of what we teach in our workshops is how actors can express their boundaries in a respectful way while still doing their jobs and feeling like, you know, they're not sacrificing their bodies and minds and souls.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah, that's so good. So what happens if a director presses? What happens then?
If the director presses, there's a stage manager present that will help. If the stage manager is also part of the problem, the intimacy director would help. If the intimacy director is part of the problem, there's always a chain of command.
Right.
So the problem in the past is there wasn't. There's somebody at the top, and that person gets to abuse everybody. And what we're trying to do is eliminate that by making everybody answer to somebody, and making sure that, you know, everybody's voice can be heard in the room.
Great. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that
so much. This is all
much.
stuff that has never even come into question in my mind at all. So I don't know. It's just fabulous to hear that things that I haven't even thought about are already being taken care of. Like that's wonderful. I think that's.
I don't know if we mentioned this on the recording, but Lainey here is super duper sensitive.
I am. Yes.
Does this make you feel better?
It does.
Good.
It really. I mean, still, like if there is boobies in a play, or I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna watch it because
that's you know, you have every right. And
totally.
Let me say, now that we have this method, you would now know. You'd be warned. You'd be given a heads up on a show if there was full frontal nudity, because we would have to say, hey, content warning, because some people are sensitive to nudity, like yourself. And so we give content warnings to make the audience understand that if you heads up, there might be nudity in this show. Use your tools if you want to remove yourself, or if you don't think you can handle it, that's up to you. So now I don't have to make that my problem. That's up to the audience to decide whether or not they can handle a situation. But I have to give them the information they need. I don't want to give away the secret. I don't want to say, you know, like, this is how we did it, and you know, this is what it's about. Like, I don't want to give away too much.
So there I was.
but just like, warning when there's a gunshot, warning when there's strobe lights, like we just say, hey, heads up, there's simulated sex acts in this show. If you don't want to watch it with your grandmother, don't bring her.
Yeah. I learned the hard way. Don't watch Game of Thrones while the mother-in-law is over.
So much damage control.
Not a good idea.
I had to do so much damage control. I'm still mad at that. You brought it back up.
The plot was really interesting. I was really into what was going on.
Of course.
And here wanders in mother-in-law.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel better, at least you didn't choreograph it and you just watched it.
You're right. Yeah, how do you show the family your hard work?
My mom comes to see everything I do.
Oh, good.
My brother does not.
Right, yeah.
Is your brother like, you can't deal with it?
He's a little more conservative, yeah. He's on the conservative side. So my mom, she's just like, she's going to be proud and she's going to grin and bear it, even though she's Catholic and such a good square. You know what I mean? Like, she's a square lady. But she wants to support her daughter, and she believes that she understands why I do what I do, and I'm trying to prevent abuse from happening. And so she's come to see as many things as she can, and tries to be supportive.
Yeah. Yay. That's awesome.
So I have another question. Do you feel like you have to really direct people away from their natural intuitions for like these roles, or do you feel like for the most part they do lean towards being consensual and being appropriate? Or does that make sense?
Yes. So I will not tolerate anything that is less than enthusiastic consent. So if I have a performer that's looking like, even in their bodies, they don't even have to say they're uncomfortable. I can see it. If I see that, we're taking a break. We're going to have a discussion. We're like, hey, what can I do? What can I do to make this more comfortable for you? What do we need? Do we need to do this? Or is it something that we can't fix? The communication is the key. And in our method, we have 5 pillars, and one of the pillars is communication. For the reason that I can't read the actors' minds. I need you to tell me if you're having an issue, if you feel unsafe. I need to know that. That way I can do something about it. So, so I find that, what we get when everybody's consenting and they know where the boundaries are, they know, okay, he's going to touch my knee like that every single time. And because I know his hand is going to be there on my knee every single time, then I can go further in my reaction to it because I trust and we're working together as partners. But if I don't know that his hand is going to stay there, then my first instinct is to like clam up, right? Like I'm going to tense because I don't know where his hand's going to go. And now all of a sudden I'm not paying attention to character. And now the story's getting muddled and the audience is going, this looks awkward, right?
I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable. I don't think they like each other. Yeah. So, so essentially what our job is to make those sex scenes look natural, and make them look natural in the bodies that we're working with. And we don't come in with preconceived choreography. We have to choreograph it with the bodies we have because everybody is different and the angles are different on each person. So it's not like fights where you can say, these are the moves, we're going to do this fight. It's like, no. The intimacy is very fluid and it changes depending on what the bodies are. But once it's set, it's not going to change. It'll change microscopically because humans are not robots. Yeah. So, like the breath might change or the timing might be slightly different, but the choreography and the moves themselves they never change. The targets of where the hands go are always the same. We call it body mapping. So the hand always goes to the same place on the map. And same with kissing. Kissing always is like, if it's like, oh, you're going to kiss here and then down the neck and then down the chest, we map it. Right. And it goes in all those places. So there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
How do you, I don't think that we covered this yet, but it just kind of came to my mind. How do you square the actor that does something inappropriate within an intimate scene and then uses the reasoning of, well, that's what the character would have wanted, he's a method actor or something like that? Because I have experienced that with some actors and their techniques of like, how do you square that?
Does the dog take care of him?
Do you stick the pit bull on him?
That's what she's for, really.
Right, yeah. Get him!
Her and her bro.
Yeah, so there are some dangerous aspects to method acting when it comes to intimacy choreography. And that is like, you cannot method act your way through a scene if only one of you is method acting, because the other one of you isn't. And that means that they are, not in the same place that you are. So I find that that's not conducive to choreographing intimacy, and that I would recommend that they follow, we choreograph it. My recommendation is we choreograph it and make it the same every night. Because if it's not the same every night, you are putting yourself at a really high risk for issues.
Right.
And a lawsuit is far more expensive than,
for sure.
You know what I mean? You don't even want to mess with it.
Yeah.
So, so I would recommend, to somebody who feels like I have to be in their method, whatever. I think that acting is, you have to have a part of your brain that knows you're acting.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise it's schizophrenia, and that's not what we're about. Right. Being an artist doesn't mean you have to have a mental illness. It's
what?
I know. We very much emphasize self-care and mental health, because in the past it was just like sacrifice your mind for your art, and it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Yeah. So, and you don't have to sacrifice your body either. It has to be sustainable. Mm-hmm. And so like those people kind of get labeled as unprofessional, and people don't want to do sex scenes with them anymore because you don't know what you're going to get. Mm. So you can develop a bad reputation for not being reliable, not being repeatable. And an actor really should know how to repeat something. That's kind of part of the job.
Yeah. Well, especially in film, like, my goodness, continuity issues and all that.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, that's literally
the basic, like, film 101.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
So for somebody that's wanting to pursue a career in intimacy directing and coordinating and all that kind of stuff, what are some routes that an individual can take to pursue that as a career?
Well, if you haven't come to any workshops ever by anybody and you're interested, I would say just come to a workshop. Right now, of course, everything's on hold because of COVID. But we offer, without sans COVID, pre-COVID, we offered a lot of national and international even workshops in this, where, we go through the techniques, we teach the basics and the fundamentals. And now we are doing more online education. There's still, even though we're not doing the in-person stuff like you see, like we can talk all day about this. There's so much information that can be told over online. So we're starting up some online classes now. But I would say in the meantime, because we're still developing this as a training program and as a specialty, it's, relatively new in the scheme of things. Directing skills, acting skills, choreography skills, movement skills, even a little bit of like theater history, knowing, the history of sex in different locations and countries and cultures, implicit bias training and communication skills. So there's a lot of other things that we can study to enhance this, or even another movement form, like learning stage combat doesn't ever hurt, or even dance could really help. So we're, there's a lot of education out there for this, and we're not the only organization now. There's a lot more that have sprung up in the past couple of years. So now it's, it's not a monopoly. There's tons of people teaching it. It's very accessible. We need to get it into our schools next, which is my 5-year plan, is to make it a core curriculum class for acting programs, if we still have acting programs.
Right, yeah. You remember back in the day when there was a thing called acting?
We used to touch each other in rehearsal.
Overtook it all.
I will say, I just started some college courses, and before I could even enroll, I had to watch a 2-hour video on sexual conduct and enthusiastic consent.
Yeah.
And it was so enlightening and so sad and so terrible, but legally, you know, we all have to watch that and take a test over it. And
we are living in a different time. You know, I wish I had had that information earlier in my life.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really glad that it's becoming more mainstream now because it was way overdue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just this is not for women. I just want to make sure to emphasize, just in case people think this is a women's movement.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case. This is about anybody, any performer. You know, sometimes when we're choreographing sexual assaults, it's the man that needs more emotional support than the woman in that scene because he has to be the person who is sexually assaulting somebody. That doesn't come naturally just because you have a penis.
Well, and I'm sure that can be mildly traumatic too for
absolutely traumatic. In more cases than not. I mean, it's really hard to portray somebody who wants to hurt someone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this is not a gender thing. This is not specific to that. I mean, yes, statistically speaking, women were getting abused at a higher rate in the theater. But, you know, we don't talk about gender the same way we did in the early 2000s. And to acknowledge that everyone is part of the abuse is really more accurate.
Yeah. Well, I'm very encouraged by the changes that have been made over the last few years. It's been just as a crew member on set, you know, like it's one weird thing. Like I'm a sound mixer on film sets. And so like I'm from a purely observational standpoint most of the time. So like I'm listening in on the director communicating with the actors. I'm listening to the actors and their processes. And there has been some very, very wonderful changes that I have noticed. And I'm very encouraged by it. And I'm very, very thankful for people like you that are, you know, really, this is such important stuff and it's making people safer. And I'm very, very thankful for you and what you do. I just want you to know that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot to hear.
We're thankful for the dog too.
We're very thankful for the dog. We might, if you're ever in Oklahoma, we may have to have a puppy date.
That sounds great. I'm hoping to come back at some point. Surely I will.
Hit us up. We'll go to the dog park.
All right, sounds good.
Well, where can the audience find more information about you and the intimacy?
Well, we're on, yes. If you look up on Facebook, we're under Intimacy Directors and Coordinators, IDC. The website is Intimacy Directors and Coordinators. Wait. I just looked it up. Sorry, this is a brand new site. So idcprofessionals.com.
Okay. And
on that, there's all the sources. You can see all the news articles that we've been in. You know, our article in the Rolling Stone magazine, Alicia was all over that. And American Theater magazine, New York Times, like all of our stuff is up here.
Yeah.
So that it's really accessible. If you want to learn more about that. And then our creative team, if you want to look at, because this is, again, we just launched this company. So it's new. We're still trying to, you know, get our bearings, and then, you know, COVID hit. So, so we're
it's gonna
right
be
now,
life is gonna be split PC and
yes,
C.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So it's all a little bit new, but you know, all of the online stuff is up now and available if anybody's interested. They may have even already sold out, but we're going to offer more because there's clearly a need.
Right.
And also it's good for people in Oklahoma because I don't live there anymore, and there aren't any certified intimacy directors that live in Oklahoma. The closest I can get you is Dallas. So the online stuff will be really good for, you know, the smaller locations that don't have access to big cities, you know, close by. And I know they're on Twitter, but I don't do Twitter, so I know it's on there.
Do you enjoy not being angry at the world? That's weird.
I just can't handle so many social media things at one time.
Right, yeah, I know. And I just keep
too
adding
old for
more and
that.
more things. Like, I can't keep up.
That's nice.
Yeah, so
oh God, wow, yeah. That's a deep cut.
Yes, I think that's everything. But all the information's on our website, so feel free to check it out. And I'm on Facebook. You know, you can look me up. I'm always trying to find. I mean, before COVID, I was always trying to travel new places to teach this information. Hopefully, I can get back to that after things get a little safer. We get a vaccine, maybe.
Yeah, right. Knock on wood.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
But if not, then I will just be teaching it from a computer for the rest of my life, I guess.
Right. Who knew that performing a kissing scene could? It's a matter of life and death. COVID is changing everything.
When Brian and I have kids and they're teenagers and getting all weird and gross, we're gonna have you come talk to them and talk about the dangers of kissing.
Dangerous.
COVID has made cooties reach a whole new level.
Right? Okay, did you see the new article? I think it was the New York Post about how to have safe sex in the COVID world.
No.
How can you have safe
how do you
sex
do
in
that?
the COVID world?
First, sanitize everything.
Yeah. They
Keep Purell nearby.
They recommended wearing a mask and getting creative.
There's a scene from the movie Naked Gun.
Yeah.
It's become that scene.
And then hazmat suits.
Yeah. Oh, did you bring protection? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. They actually advised to get kinky about it, which was weird to read.
Really?
In an article. But so that how can you have sex without ever touching mouths or
life finds a way.
Well, it's not going to be very good sex at all. If you have to take,
it won't be.
This is the most mediocre I've ever had.
So just take a break, y'all. Everybody, just take a breather.
We had to stay 6 feet apart the whole time. It was really difficult.
I mean, beggars can't be choosy, I guess, but still,
I'll take it. It's been 3 months.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm glad that it's a sex positive article. At least they're not saying everybody abstain from sex completely, because they're like, no, everyone should have more sex. We need people to have more sex because everyone's going crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Everyone calm down.
I'm still excited about the big baby boom after this quarantine.
Yeah, the COVID babies, the quarantinees or whatever.
To be followed by the divorce boom that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes. What? Predicted it. You heard it here first, folks. It's going to happen. Starting with me and Lainey.
Oh, no.
Because I wanted to stay 6 feet apart and you said no.
This is not going to work. I can't reach that far.
Bring in the dog.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Wow. What a world, right?
Oh, goodness. Well, Tanya, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. This has been really, really fun getting to talk to you and getting to meet you in quote unquote person.
In person. Yeah. Likewise. Thanks for having me. And thanks for, this is a topic that's really important to me. And I feel like even though right now everything's paused, it's still important to remember, we can't go back on this. We can't go back to what we had. Mm-hmm. It's we can only move forward, and it's not about pointing fingers at everybody. It's literally about how do we all move forward as an industry together without crumbling on itself. And the only way forward is to make every voice heard in the room.
Yep. Let's just keep everybody safe. Let's just let's do it, and we got to do it together as a community. So we got to do it together. All righty. Tanya, thank you. And you have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. It's been really fun. Well, that was freaking cool.
Do you want me to sing my I Hate Boobies song?
Okay. Yes.
I hate boobies. I hate butts. You shouldn't show them. It makes me go nuts. Nuts. No pun intended.
Hey.
Don't show those either.
Oh.
Okay, so I want to touch on that at the very beginning of the episode, she talked about how your brain, whenever you're kissing,
yes.
doesn't necessarily all the time interpret that as, I'm acting.
Well, yeah,
And I've always thought that. Like, you hear particular actors, they're just like, oh, yeah, no, I mean, we're just
acting.
And part of me is just like, bull crap. And I love that she touched on that, because that is something, and I know that it might be different with some people. Like, some people can just turn it off and whatever, but for the majority of people, bull crap.
Short circuit, Lainey short circuit.
So
yeah, no, I mean, like like
the fact that she not only
we have biology, people.
That she not only touches on it, but has different paths to counteract that in a very subtle, non-invasive, non-embarrassing, non-exploitive way, such as that beautiful baby angel dog.
Oh dear. Totes adores people.
I just think that's fantastic. So, but she touched on things that, really, really is.
Okay, so if you and I were we were not in a relationship, like if we were just coworkers and we had to do an intimate scene.
We were just coworkers,
right? Yeah, if we were acting together,
and we had to do
if we were working at McDonald's and we had to do an intimate scene as coworkers, we're flipping our burgers. What would be your method to break it up? Like, here we are, we're flipping our burgers and action, and we have to smooch.
Lester, I'm just over here making this Big Mac for my favorite customer, Brenda.
Ooh.
It sure is hot in here.
Ooh, it is hot in here, and I love that Big Mac on your spatula.
I'm just gonna unbutton the top part of my mandatory McDonald's uniform.
Ooh!
Ignore my bear claw tattoo.
That really Frenches my fries.
Lester,
keep it together.
I don't know if it's the smell of all this French fry grease that works as an aphrodisiac.
You've got to stop drinking on the job, Bertha.
But I feel like you should eat one end of this French fry, and I should eat another end of this French fry, and
like a redneck Lady and the Tramp.
We should meet in the middle.
But this is my French fry. It's a delicious French fry. You can't have all of my French fry.
So you're not consenting to me?
I do not consent to you eating my French fry.
You know what?
It is perfectly salted. I salted it myself.
You know what,
This French fry was perfectly assaulted.
This is why you're 40 and still a virgin. Nope. Edit.
Poor choice of improv.
Okay, you want to start from the...
No. Let's soldier on.
You're keeping this in there.
How do we... because we still haven't figured out how you, as a character, as Bertha, would maintain the professional relationship after performing this intimate scene.
Okay, so we're lady tramping it with the French fry.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's my French fry.
Okay.
Meanwhile, back in the French fry world.
Nom nom. Wait, no, I can't have your French fry. See, you've said no. You've broken the rule of improv. Now I have nowhere to go.
Yes, and
Okay. Should we eat the?
There, I successfully broke up the intimacy of this particular moment.
I would just fart.
That works too.
And this is why
that is a cure-all method. Just your pants.
And the show could definitely go on after that.
That is I don't know, that might be a showstopper there.
Yeah. I know I understand the need for intimacy coordinators because left to my own devices, I would just fart. No. Okay.
I met this new actress today, and we tried to do a scene for the first time, and she just shot herself at the end of it all. I don't think I can look at her the same ever again.
Okay.
All sexual tension evaporated in that very moment.
In all seriousness, I really appreciate what, she's doing with, everybody else in her.
Yeah. I think it's just so cool.
As a woman, like, and I mean, obviously not just because I'm a woman, but I've been in moments where sexual comments, unwanted, have been made. And
I apologized for that.
But because of the person that it was coming from, like, my natural instinct was to laugh it off, and it didn't get my point across that I did not welcome this, that this was not appropriate, because I was so uncomfortable and caught off guard. So to have somebody there, like,
somebody to be able to step in is just so great.
It's wonderful, and it just makes me so happy that there are people that care enough, that see in between the lines, and actually make a game plan. So, yay.
Yeah, good for her. That's, And you guys, if I really implore you, if you are interested in becoming actors, or if you're interested in becoming directors, if you're wanting to be a filmmaker, like, this is really, really important stuff, because these are people's lives that we're dealing with. And we want to keep everybody safe. I feel like I keep talking about that from different angles for the last few episodes. We just want to keep everybody safe. We want to be able to get home back to our families and, not have horror stories. Yeah. So please, if you're wanting to pursue directing and acting, check out Tonya, check out the program that she has available at idcprofessionals.com. It's really, really great stuff.
She's a nice lady. I just want her to come read me a bedtime story now, too, because everything that she talks about just made me feel so safe.
Right. Yeah.
So now I just...
That's an effective intimacy coordinator. What if she made you feel what if an intimacy coordinator made you feel so unsafe? The intimacy coordinator's here. Oh, God.
She had a teardrop tattoo. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah. She's always walking around in a cape.
And that pit bull was
She's always sharpening her knives.
That was the scariest pit bull I've ever seen in my entire life. With her bow. Oh. She had the sleepy, like, ma'am.
Yeah, she was being interrupted of her nap.
Ma'am, why'd you wake me up?
Alrighty, guys. Well, we're going to let you go. Be sure to tune in the next 2 weeks. And if you like what you heard and you would like to be a part of it yourself, please go to patreon.com/OkieShowShow, or visit us online at okieshowshow.com, on our social media at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Let's face it, Facebook and Instagram is far more focused upon...
It sounded like you said Okie Show Shore.
The Okie Show Shore. That's...
He sells seashells by the seashore. Show shore.
Big gulps, huh?
I'm Simple Lady.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
All right, y'all. We will see you in the next 2 weeks. And that's pretty much it. Bye.
I hate boobies.
The Okie Show Show is a mostly harmless media podcast recorded at Tower Studios in Oklahoma City. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. If you're a business or industry professional that would like to advertise on the podcast, email info@okieshowshow.com. Rates starting as low as $25.